First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about changing a flat tire on, or actually a tube on the side of the trail. So we're basically just going to kind of do a light simulation on things went sad. You have to turn the bike on its side, pull the rear tire out, and install a new tube in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay the bike down on the axle side with the nut facing up. If you have a motorcycle that's got a carburetor, you're going to want to shut the fuel off so you don't dump fuel all over the place. Pretty much any fuel injected motorcycle, you're not going to have to worry about any major loss of fluids, so you should be okay. So, got the handy little backpack here. I think we kind of talked about it in our last little episode. Just going to dig out some of our spanner wrenches and our axle wrenches. So fortunately on this one, got a nice little kit we can set up on it. One thing you may want to discover, and I'm actually going to pop this back up again, just so you can see the advantage of some mechanical advantage versus starting out with the bike on the ground. So have your wrench set up, just give it a good boot like that, and you can use that force of the bike being on the ground. That way it's going to help you out in that process versus trying to kick it off to the side. Luckily we're going to have our motocross boots on. It's my work day today, so I've just got my shop boots on. So once you've got that broke loose, nut's gonna come off, and I would recommend placing your hardware maybe somewhere close to your backpack so where you're not gonna lose those goodies. Just like so. Don't worry about your chain tensioners. You can leave them right where they need to be. Push the bike wheel forward a little bit. Get your chain off. And you can work that tire right out. Okay, so one thing that you might gain the advantage of is if you do blow a tire or a tube out on the trail and you've ridden on it a little bit, a lot of times it'll debead that tire. So one side or the other will come off, or make it a little more advantageous for you to actually muscle that tire around. So right now we're okay. So I'm just gonna actually grab a core tool and remove the valve stem on it just so it deflates. Okay, so valve core, some bikes actually have metal valve core stem covers on them, so you can use those to your advantage. That's actually just a little valve core tool right there. So pop the valve core out on this one. Normally if the tire's already deflated, you're not gonna do this. Then we're just gonna grab our tools. Most of your valve core stems are 12 millimeter. We're just gonna pull that nut off of there. And if your tube actually strips out and yanks the valve stem right out and it's just spinning, that's no big deal. Then you can just start right off the bat on removing that tire. Let's see if we maybe get a little lucky on this one. So we're just gonna get that started. One thing you might find to your advantage, I know everyone's packing water in their bikes. A little bit of lubricant around that tire, that way it's gonna help your tire irons get stuffed into that wheel a little easier. So once we're in there, we're just gonna keep working more spoons in there. And if it won't break loose here, then you can grab a stump or a rock or something like that to help you out. So we're just gonna work it around, keep getting that bead to break. And like I said, most times if you get a flat tire, one of your beads is already gonna break anyway, so you shouldn't have to go through this process, but we're just gonna run you through it. One thing to be mindful of, your brake rotor is really sharp, so wear your gloves while you're doing this process. And if you're lucky, it was the brake rotor side that came unbeaded on you. So tube's out. Now I know this tube is good, so I'm not going to put a new one in, but if you need to, your new tube, you can either use just some dust off the trail, make sure there's not a whole bunch of grit in it, or just use your bottled water as lubricant, and that'll help slide that back in there. So that's actually what we're going to do with this one. So now that we've got our rim started, we put that nut on there, just a couple threads, probably about 3 to 4 threads is all you need just to keep it held in there. Then all we're going to do is we're going to pull the tire back over the tube. Here's where a little bit of lubrication helps with water. Good deal. Okay, so now that we've got that started, notice how our valve stem is poking out slightly. One thing you want to be mindful of is push that into the threads, because sometimes that tube can get caught up underneath the bead, and then when you remount it, that bead of the tube is stuck right on this edge, and that's where you end up pinching your tire again. So then basically just start back over again. So now that we're here, so we've got basically the tubes all stuffed in. Really be mindful of getting that tube stuffed all the way up underneath the rim edge so you don't catch it. Here's where we have to be a little sneaky. You don't want to just drive your tire in there and just go crazy at it. You have to kind of sneak that in there, because if you just go bonkers and try stuffing that tire in there, there's a good chance that you could pinch your tube. So here's where we're going to take little teeny, almost half bites on it. Crank it down to where we're trying to torque anything. We're just trying to bring that tube all the way up to the rim edge. So once we're at that point, basically we're going to take our little adapter, we're going to screw that onto our valve stem. So once that's on there, then we're just going to take our little CO2 cartridge. And no guarantees you'll get a full bead, but at least you'll get a body out of it. Ideally, you want to get a full bead out of there, so we're going to shoot for 2 on it. And we can clean up our mess and we're back on the trail again. So hopefully that kind of gives you some ideas on things you have to do on just getting that tire replaced and getting yourself back on the road, and hopefully not interfere with too much riding time out there.